This part, right?
Yes.
This was done?
Yeah, it is done. Yes, from you. Done, ma'am. 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 Done, ma'am.
Okay, so before you study, Okay, try to note down the notes. Take
Okay,
down the
ma'am.
notes so that you can say while writing only you'll learn.
Yes.
Okay, so today we're going to do microbes in human welfare.
Yes.
Okay, the notes I will give you later. First, I'll
Okay.
try to complete the chapter. Okay,
Okay, ma'am.
now see, this chapter is very nice, easy breezy chapter.
Yes.
So in this chapter, we're going to see the microbes that we know about. What do they do for us other than causing disease, right? So there are
Yes.
multiple microbes that obviously cause diseases in human beings, but there are multiple that are very beneficial also. So
Yes.
that is what we're going to see now. Microbes, they are in abundance because we can't see them. That's why we can't put a number, but they are in abundance and so many of them are there. So microbes, they are present everywhere, meaning in the soil, water, air, inside our bodies and also inside the other animals and plants' body. Now, they are present even at sites where no other life form could possibly exist, like inside the geysers that are like high, like the thermal vents, where the
Yes.
temperature is really, really high, meaning as high as 100 degrees Celsius. Then they are present deep in the soil also, under the layers of snow, several meters thick, and in highly acidic environments also. So because of their body structure, like their cell structure, they have certain, you can say walls and all, because of which they are very, you can say resistant to all of this.
Yeah.
So that is why they can be found in all of these extremities of the environment. Now, microbes, they are diverse, meaning they, like the protozoans come under that, the bacteria come under that, fungi, even microscopic plant viruses, viroids, and also prions that are proteinaceous infectious agents. Like they don't have their own DNA or RNA, they just have proteins, that is their structure, and that protein itself is like infectious. So we call them as prions. So these are all the organisms that will be constituted as the microorganisms. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, microbes like bacteria and many fungi, they can be grown on nutritive media to form colonies that can be seen with naked eyes. So like when we take a Petri plate and we put media into it, like agar and carbon source, nitrogen source, so the bacteria and the fungus, they can grow a lot. And then we can visualize them because they start making clumps or colonies. So we can see that easily. So we can use that colony to study the microbes. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So this is like basically the first and the second image that you're seeing. This is how the colonies would look like, and we can easily visualize it without
Okay.
even the help of a microscope. So
Yes.
these are the pictures of some these microorganisms. Like this one is a rod-shaped bacteria which has so many flagella present in its body. It is rhodospirillum. Then there
Okay.
is the viruses like this one, and this one. These are the three pictures of viruses. The first one is a bacteriophage. That this one infects bacteria. It is the virus that infects bacteria. The second
Okay.
one is the this thing adenovirus, and the third one is tobacco mosaic virus. So all of these are the different kinds of virus. Some of them are plant viruses, some are human viruses. Then this is
Okay.
how if we grow the organism in a colony, it would look like this, like small circular
Okay.
structures. Sometimes they'll form a line like this. And fungal colony is the best observed one because it forms structures like this on the
Okay.
petri. Now, moving forward. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
The screen is stuck. Now we have already studied that the microorganism, they cause a large amount of diseases in the case of human beings. They also cause diseases in the case of animals and other plants also. But again, like I said, they are not all harmful. They are, some of them are very useful. So now we're going to see which microbes are useful in the household products. So the best, the most common and the most like recurrent, like easily occurring is the one that milk to curd, right? So during the formation of curd, the microorganism called as lactobacillus and other which are known as lactic acid bacteria, they grow in the milk and then they cause the curdling of the milk. And during this process, why they are so important, like you might have heard that eating curd is really healthy for us. Why?
Yes.
Because curd has a lot of vitamin B12 in it. Like it's like nutritionally enhanced. So when we talk about the curd, so it is formed by the lactobacillus. So during the growth, the lactic acid bacteria, they produce acids that coagulate and partially digest the milk proteins. A small amount of curd added to the fresh milk as inoculum. You might have heard the Hika Jordan, they say, right?
Yeah.
That is added to the milk and then it is kept overnight and then the milk turns into curd. Why? Because in that inoculum, the little starter that we put in the milk, that has millions of bacteria in it. And that bacteria, they start partially digesting the milk. And as a result of which, the milk turns into curd or sort of curdles into and becomes curd. So during this time, what happens? Its nutritional quality is enhanced by increasing the vitamin B12 in it. So that is why curd is better than milk. Now in our stomach too, the lactic acid bacteria, they play very beneficial role in checking disease-causing microorganisms. So they are present in our gut as well. So this was the first example. Now the dough which is used for making foods like dosa and idli, it is also fermented by bacteria. The puffed up appearance, like when you make the dough or the batter for dosa and idli, you keep it covered for a little while and then you see that it is suddenly has risen up. So that is because of the production of CO2. So while the bacteria is sort of acting or fermenting that dough, so the dough gives a puffed up appearance and that is because CO2 gas is released in it.
Okay.
Right. So similarly, the dough which is used for making the bread, this is also like here, baker's yeast is added, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is a fungus. It's a unicellular fungus.
Okay.
Okay, so this one is added to the baking part so that again it will do the process of fermentation, as a result of which the CO2 will be released and the dough will rise. A number of traditional drinks and foods are also made by fermentation by microbes. Like the one such example is toddy. It is a traditional drink of some parts of southern India and it is made by fermenting sap from palms. Microbes are also used to ferment fish, soybean and bamboo shoots to make food. Cheese is one of the oldest food items in which microbes were used. Different varieties of cheese are known by their characteristic texture, flavor, and taste. The specificity comes from the microbe use. So the different cheese that are there available, they have a different variety or a taste or a texture. It's because of the different microorganisms that are used. For example, Swiss cheese. This is the kind of cheese which has a lot of holes present in it. Again, why is this? Because CO2, like a large amount of CO2 is released by the bacterium called as Propionibacterium shermani. This is the name of the bacteria that is used to make the Swiss cheese. Okay. Then the Roquefort cheese, they are ripened by growing a specific fungi on them, which gives them a particular flavor. There are many cheese in the market that smell terrible.
Yes.
But they are of great economical value and they smell terrible because of the different microorganisms that are used.
Okay. Yeah? Yes, ma'am.
Now, microbes in industrial products. Just 1 second, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Now, microbes in the microbes in household products are clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now, microbes in industrial products. Now, even in industry, microbes are used to synthesize a number of products that are very valuable to human beings. Beverages, antibiotics are some examples produced by microbes. So production on an industrial scale requires growing microbes in a very large vessels called as fermenters. So these are huge tanks in which the fermentation process takes place. So now when we talk about fermented beverages, now you might know that the alcoholic beverages that are there, they are actually prepared by the process of fermentation. So
Yes.
in that, microbes, particularly like the unicellular fungus yeast, they have been used for the production of beverage like wine, beer, whiskey, brandy, or rum. All of these are alcoholic. So for
Okay.
this purpose, the same yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, used for bread making and commonly called as brewer's yeast. It is
Okay.
also used for fermenting the malted cereals and fruit juices to produce ethanol. So here
Okay.
it does anaerobic respiration, right? Then only alcoholic is like alcohol is produced. Now,
Yes.
depending on the type of raw material used for the fermentation and the type of processing, with or without distillation, different types of alcoholic drinks are obtained. Now, see what happens is that this yeast organism, like when it will do the process of fermentation. Okay,
Mm.
so for example, in this vessel, there is like you have added a lot of grape juice,
Okay.
natural, like by crushing and all. And now you've added yeast to it, and now the yeast is fermenting it. So slowly, the alcoholic concentration in this vessel will start rising up, right? And
Yes.
when the alcohol will reach 13%, okay.
Okay.
Now, after the alcohol is reached 13%, now the yeast will not be able to survive in the alcohol and it will die.
Okay.
So if we say that in the alcohols that are naturally made, in them, the maximum concentration of alcohol that can be there, it will be 13%. But
Okay.
then there are so many different alcoholic drinks like vodka and all that have a really high concentration of alcohol. So why? So after the process of fermentation, they undergo the process of distillation.
Okay.
So the alcoholic content is even increased. But for the naturally produced alcoholic drinks, they'll only have 13% and not more than this.
Okay.
So the wine and the beer, they are produced without distillation. Okay, meaning they'll have 13%. And then if we talk about whiskey, brandy, rum, vodka, all of that, so they'll have greater than 13% concentration of alcohol. Clear?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So for making the alcohol, there are two processes. First is fermentation, second is distillation. Then talking about the production of antibiotics. Now, antibiotics, these are used to kill the disease-causing microbes. So antibiotics produced by microbes are regarded as one of the most significant discoveries of the 20th century and have greatly contributed towards the welfare of human society. Anti means against. Biotic refers to the life. But this is not against our life, rather it is against the life of the pathogen. So
Yes.
these are the chemical substances which are produced by some microbes and can kill or retard, meaning slow, the growth of other disease-causing microbes. The best example is penicillin. Penicillin, it was discovered by Alexander Fleming. Okay. And
Yes.
why? Like, how did he discover it? So he was working on staphylococci bacteria and he saw that a mold growing in one of his unwashed culture. Okay, like unwashed culture plates around with staphylococci could not grow. So
Okay.
in like if in the culture there was staphylococci present, so the mold, the fungal growth could not have been taken place. So
Mm.
maybe staphylococci produced something that caused the death of the mold. So then he wanted to extract it, and then he finally basically found out that it was penicillin. So he
Okay.
found out it was due to a chemical produced by the mold, and he named it penicillin. So
Okay.
after the mold, Penicillium notatum. So because the like this particular mold, it would constrict the growth of the bacteria. Okay, I said the opposite thing. See here, the staphylococci was not able to grow. but the
Yes.
mold was growing. So the mold was actually killing the staphylococci in some way or the other. And this mold is usually of a fungus. Okay.
Okay.
So this fungus was called as Penicillium notatum. And the chemical, whatever it was making, he named it penicillin. And then it was extracted, and many a times now it is like its full potential as an effective antibiotic was established much later by Ernst Chain and Howard Florey. So
Okay.
this antibiotic was extensively used to treat American soldiers wounded in the World War II. So Fleming, like Alexander Fleming, then
Yes.
this Ernest Chain and Howard Florey, they were awarded the Nobel Prize in the year 1945 for this discovery. Clear?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
So this is one of the oldest antibiotic used, and it is one of the most effective one. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, after the penicillin, other antibiotics were also purified from other microbes. Do you remember the names of some antibiotics?
Antibiotics, no, ma'am.
You do. Try to recall from biotechnology.
Technology applications.
No, processes.
Antibiotics.
Hmm.
Mm.
That a bacteria or a part of bacteria may be able to produce.
No, ma'am, I
Remember
don't.
antibiotic resistance, you remember?
No, ma'am.
Like when any external gene was being added. So at that point of time, what happened? That they showed or lost the antibiotic resistance. So ampicillin, tetracycline, all of these are the antibiotics only.
Yes.
Clear?
Okay, ma'am. Yes.
Now, moving forward. Antibiotics have greatly improved our capacity to treat deadly diseases such as plague, whooping cough, which is known as kali khasi, diphtheria, and leprosy, which used to kill millions all over the globe. But because of the antibiotics, these diseases have been controlled. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
No. Now, chemicals, enzymes, and other bioactive molecules which we receive from microorganisms. So the microbes, they're also used for the commercial and industrial production of certain chemicals like organic acid, alcohol, and enzymes. Example of acid producers, Aspergillus niger. It is a fungus that produces citric acid.
Okay.
Acetobacter aceti. It is a bacterium that produces acetic acid.
Okay.
Clostridium butylicum, it produces butyric acid. And then lactobacillus, it produces lactic acid.
Yes.
So all of these different types of acids, they are produced by different types of microorganisms.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yes, ma'am.
Now yeast, which is Saccharomyces cerevisiae, it is used for the commercial production of ethanol. This is an alcohol. Microbes are also used for the production of enzymes, a variety of enzymes like lipase. Now, lipase, these are the ones that are used in the detergent formula, right? They are useful for removing the oily stains because they digest the fats.
Okay.
Lipids are digested by the lipase. So they are used in many detergent formulas so that the detergent will be able to remove the oil stains from the laundry.
Okay.
Now, the bottled fruit juices, they are clearer as compared to those made at home. Why? Because they are clarified by the use of pectinase. So, like for example, if anyone makes juice out of anything, the pulp of the fruit also goes there. But
Yes.
in the store-bought juices or the Tetra Pak juices, you might have seen that it's clear. Why?
Yes.
Because these enzymes are added to it, pectinases and proteases. Clear?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Now, the streptokinase, which is produced by the bacterium Streptococcus, It is modified by genetic engineering and it is used as a clot buster. So if anyone has a blood clot in the blood vessel, then this particular drug is used, streptokinase. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Then again, another bioactive molecule is cyclosporin A. This is used as an immunosuppressive agent in organ transplant patients. So
Okay.
here it is like produced by the fungus called as Trichoderma polysporum. So this Trichoderma polysporum, it produces cyclosporin A. So if anyone has undergone some sort of organ transplant, so since the organ transplanted, it is the foreign stuff for the body, right? Because it is taken from someone else.
Yes.
So our body will recognize it as a pathogen only, and it will start attacking that transplanted organ. So we have to avoid that so that the transplant doesn't fail. So in that case, the person, it stays on immunosuppressive agents so that the immune system will not attack these organs that have been transplanted. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So for that, the immunosuppressive agent that is used is cyclosporin A.
Okay.
Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Then there are statins. Now, these are certain, you can say, useful in the healthcare. So,
Okay.
statins, they are produced by the yeast called as Monascus purpureus. Now,
Okay.
they are used as blood cholesterol lowering agents. So, they lower the blood cholesterol. So,
Okay.
again, very useful to human beings.
Yes.
Then coming on to the use of the microbes in the sewage treatment.
Okay.
Now, sewage is the wastewater generated every single day, right?
Okay.
So, a major component of this wastewater is the human excreta.
Yes.
All of the effluents of the house, all of that makes the sewage. Now, the municipal wastewater is also called as sewage. It contains large amount of organic matter and microbes.
Yes.
Many of which are very pathogenic. Obviously, in human excreta also there will be microbes, so it will be very pathogenic. So where is the sewage discharge? So the sewage that is produced every single day, it is discharged directly into the water bodies like rivers and streams. But again, if you think about it, it is so unhygienic also, and it is so harmful also to the organisms living there, isn't it? So
Yes.
before their disposal, like before throwing it into the water bodies, the sewage must be treated.
Yes.
Treated meaning it should be like getting rid of the pathogens, disease-causing pathogens. So it is treated in the sewage treatment plant and to make it less polluted. Treatment of wastewater, it is done by the heterotrophic microbes naturally present in the sewage. So the whole entire process of sewage treatment, it has been divided basically into let's just say two stages, primary and secondary. Now the primary treatment of the sewage, it is basically physical treatment.
Okay.
How? These treatment steps basically involve physical removal of particles. Like the large and the small particles that are there in the sewage, that is removed and by the process of this thing, filtration and sedimentation. So it
Okay.
is physically filtered out and also the some smaller particles, they are sedimented down.
Okay.
So these are removed in stages. Initially, the floating debris is removed by sequential filtration. So anything that is floating in that sewage, it is removed by filtration. And then the grit that contains the soil, the pebbles, they are removed by sedimentation. They are made to, like they are allowed to settle down and then they are removed.
Okay.
All the solids that settle form the primary sludge. So the settled part, it becomes the primary sludge. And the supernatant is the one that appears on the top. The
Okay.
bottom ones are primary sludge and the supernatant that appears on the top, they become the effluent.
Okay. Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
from the primary settling tank, the effluent part is taken for secondary treatment.
Okay.
Now, secondary treatment is called as the biological treatment. Now, here, these effluent, they are sent into big tanks that have this ability to pump air into it. So they are sent into large aeration tanks. Now here it is constantly agitated, sort of mixed, so that air will be pumped into it. And why are we supplying air? So that the microbes that are there, the aerobic microbes, they can grow.
Okay.
So this useful aerobic microbes, they grow into flocks, like a mass or a mesh-like structure. And
Okay.
while growing, obviously the microbes will need something to eat to
Yeah.
grow. So while growing, these microbes, they consume the major part of the organic matter in the effluent.
Okay.
So they start consuming the organic matter, because of which the BOD, that is biochemical oxygen demand of the effluent, that gets reduced.
Okay.
So BOD means basically the amount of oxygen that will be used if all of this particular organic matter in 1 liter of water gets oxidized by the bacteria. So
Okay.
basically it's getting reduced. So the sewage treatment is done till the BOD is reduced. If the BOD is less, then that means pollution is less.
Okay.
So the BOD test measures the rate of uptake of oxygen by microorganisms, meaning if more organic matter is there, then obviously the BOD will be high,
Yes.
because microorganisms can utilize this organic matter. And
Yes.
when the BOD becomes low, then that means there is no more oxygen left.
Okay.
So BOD is a measure of the organic matter present in the water. So if the BOD is high, then that means it is more polluting. If it is
Okay.
low, then that means it is less polluting. So once the BOD of the sewage or the wastewater gets reduced, the effluent is then passed into a settling tank where the bacterial flocks are allowed to sediment. Now the bacterial flocks, they settle at the bottom. This
Okay.
sediment is called as activated sludge. A small amount is of this activated sludge is sent back to the aeration tank, because if you add a microbe, then only the microbe will grow.
Yes.
Just like how in the milk we were adding a little bit of curd.
Yes.
The same way here also we are taking the activated sludge and adding it back into that tank, because it acts like the inoculum, the starter. The remaining part is pumped into large tanks called as anaerobic sludge digesters. Now the next
Okay.
step is anaerobic, in the absence of oxygen. Here, other kinds of bacteria which grow anaerobically, meaning without oxygen, they digest the bacteria and fungi in the sludge.
Okay.
Okay, during this digestion, the bacteria produce a mixture of gases like methane, hydrogen sulfide, and carbon dioxide. So CH4, H2S, and CO2. These are the three gases that are produced, and these gases together form the biogas. And this gas is actually inflammable, so it can be used like a fuel.
Okay.
So the effluent from the secondary treatment is generally released into the natural water body, like rivers and streams, because now it is not harmful. Clear?
Okay.
So
Yes,
this
ma'am.
is the picture of the sewage treatment plant. And this is good so as to reduce the water pollution.
Yes.
Now, what happens that if the sewage is more, then the best option to treat that sewage will be the sewage treatment plant, like
Yes.
for that purpose. Now, so the untreated sewage is often discharged directly into the rivers, leading to their pollution and increase in waterborne diseases. So that is why sewage treatment plants are very important. Now, the Ministry of Environment and Forest, they have initiated the Ganga Action Plan and the Yamuna Action Plan to save these major rivers of our country from pollution. So under this plan, it is proposed to build a large number of sewage treatment plants so that only and only the treated sewage is discharged and not the ones that have high microbes and filth into it. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm. Now, microbes in the production of biogas. This part is clear, sewage treatment.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, microbes in the production of biogas. Now, biogas, it is a mixture of gases that contains the methane, hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide and methane, they are the most important components. Now, biogas, it is a mixture of gases containing predominantly methane. It is produced by the microbial activity and it can be used like a fuel.
Okay.
Now, the type of gas produced depends upon the microbe and the organic substrate they utilize. In the example cited in the relation to fermentation of dough, cheese, and production of beverage, the main gas produced was CO2. However,
Yes.
there are certain bacteria that can grow anaerobically, meaning without oxygen, on cellulosic material, and they can produce a large amount of methane and CO2 and H2. So these
Okay.
bacteria that can produce methane, we call them as methanogens. Okay.
Okay.
And one example of a methanogen is methanobacterium.
Okay.
Now, these bacteria, they are found in anaerobic sludge during sewage treatment. And these
Okay.
bacteria, they are also found in the rumen, which is a part of stomach of the cattle. So it's found in the cattle's stomach. So a lot of cellulosic material present in the food of cattle because the cattle eats plant and plant has cellulose in their cell wall. So
Yeah.
they have cellulose as their diet also. So here the cellulose is actually broken down because of the bacteria that is there in their gut.
Okay.
So that is why we can say that the excreta of the cattle, meaning the cow dung and stuff, they are rich in these bacteria, these anaerobic bacteria. And this cow dung, the excreta of the cattle, they can be used for the generation of biogas, which is also known as
Okay.
gobar gas because dung means gobar. Now,
Okay.
the biogas plant consists of a concrete tank, which is 10 to 15 feet deep, in which bio wastes are collected and a slurry of dung is fed into it. So into that tank, water and dung mixed is supplied to it. And then a cover, a floating cover is placed over that slurry. So if the
Okay.
gas will be produced, the cover will be rising up.
Okay.
Now the biogas plant has an outlet. So this is the outlet so that this can be supplied to the nearby houses because it's like gas that is inflammable. It can light a fire. So it can be used to cook and do like the household stuff. So the spent slurry is removed through another outlet and it can be used like a fertilizer.
Yes.
So here the slurry is sent, okay, and it goes into this part, which is the digester. Here the anaerobic digestion takes place due to which methane and carbon dioxide is made, and because both like carbon dioxide is a gas and methane is also a gas, so this cover rises up indicating that this has been produced. So now there is this outlet through which it is supplied to the houses.
Okay.
Cattle dung is available in larger quantities in the rural areas where cattle are used for a variety of purposes. So biogas plants, they are more often built in rural areas because in cities, there are not much cattle walking around.
Yes.
So the biogas thus produced, it is used for cooking and lighting. The picture of a biogas plant now you see here. Now the technology
Okay.
of this biogas production, it was developed in India mainly due to the efforts of Indian Agriculture Research Institute, IARI, and Khadi and Village Industries Commission, KVIC. So this is important to remember. It was asked in NEET also some year, and this is important.
Okay.
Clear?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Now, microbes that are used for biocontrol. Now, biocontrol is like, see, normally to kill the insects and pests, we use chemicals, right? But biocontrol
Yeah.
is when we will be using certain microorganism to control the insects and pests.
Okay.
So, to avoid the usage of insecticides and pesticides, because they are very toxic and extremely harmful to human beings and animals. So, and apart from that, they cause pollution in our environment. So we use
Yes.
the biological control. So in that, in agriculture,
Okay.
there is a method of controlling pests that relies on natural predation rather than introduced chemicals. So a key
Okay.
belief of an organic farmer is that biodiversity furthers health. The more variety a landscape has, the more sustainable. We have also seen this in biodiversity chapter, right?
Okay. Yes.
Now the organic farmer that is there, basically he wants that not all the pests, like they are kept at manageable level, meaning they are not removed all of them. Why? Because as I said, that the presence of every organism is important on the earth.
Yes.
So the organic farmer therefore works to create a system where the insects that are sometimes called as the pests, they are not eradicated, meaning they are not removed totally, but they are kept at manageable levels by a complex systems of checks and balances within
Okay.
a living and vibrant ecosystem. So, like this is exactly opposite of what chemicals do. Chemicals kill all of them. But
Yes.
here we are keeping them at a level that is beneficial to us, and
Okay.
we are killing the amount that we want to kill.
Okay.
So the organic farmer holds the view that the eradication of the creatures that are often described as pests is not only possible, but also undesirable because they have that predator parasitic insects which depends on them as food or host. So they'll not be able to survive. That is why we use biocontrol measures so that they can be controlled in a limited amount. An important part of the biological farming approach is to become familiar with the various forms of life that inhabit the field, predators as well as the pests, and also their life cycle, pattern of feeding, habitat, and everything. The farmer should know. We don't care. Very familiar beetle with red and black markings, the ladybird. Right, the
Yes.
ladybird and the dragonflies, they are
Yes.
very useful. Why? Because they can get rid of the aphids and mosquitoes in that area.
Okay.
So these are biocontrol agents, right? They are
Yes.
just like you introduce them and they're not harming anyone, they're
Yeah.
not causing any pollution, and they are killing aphids and mosquitoes. Another example of microbial biocontrol agent will be in order to control the butterfly caterpillar, the
Okay.
Bacillus thuringiensis, right? The
Yes.
insect can be killed. These are available in sachet, like dried spores, which are mixed with water and sprayed onto vulnerable plants, such as brassicas and fruit trees, where these are eaten by the insects. So now the insect eats it. The
Yes.
toxin get released into the insect's gut, as a
Yes.
result of which the gut has a lot of pores and the insects get killed, right? Why
Yes.
does the toxin not affect the bacteria?
The bacteria, because it is in an inactive state inside
Hmm.
bacteria.
So, what happens when it goes inside the body of the
It
insect?
because of the pH level in the gut, it becomes solubilized, and the crystal gets active
Hmm.
and binds with the gut.
Yeah, exactly. Now, so this was again a biocontrol agent.
Yes.
So, as a result, like Bacillus thuringiensis, toxin genes have been introduced into the plants, and we have made pest-resistant plants only. BT cotton, BT brinjal, corn, and everything. Now,
Yes.
a biological control being developed for the use in the treatment of plant diseases is the fungus called as trichoderma. Now, these
Okay.
are free-living fungi that are very common in the root ecosystem. So they live in the root and they don't infect the root. They just live there and eat the pathogens of the plant or
Okay.
destroy them. Okay. Then there are baculoviruses. Now,
Okay.
these are pathogens that can attack the insect and other arthropods,
Okay.
meaning those that come under the insect category. Majority of the baculovirus, they are used as the biocontrol agents. They are in the genus Nucleopolyhedrovirus.
Okay.
These viruses, they are excellent candidates for species-specific narrow-spectrum insecticidal application. They have been shown to have no negative impacts on the plant, mammals, birds, fishes, or even non-target insects. So they just infect the insect and no one else. So that
Okay.
is why, like, we can say that biocontrol is actually the best form, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, this is especially desirable when beneficial insects are being conserved to aid in an overall integrated pest management program, IPM, where ecologically sensitive area is being treated. So, integrated pest management is when we control the pest in a very, you can say, sustained manner without harming anything else. Clear?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Now comes microbes as biofertilizers. Now, with our present day lifestyles, environmental pollution is a major cause of concern. The
Yes.
use of chemical fertilizers to meet the ever increasing demand of agriculture has contributed to the pollution. So now
Okay.
biofertilizers are used. Now, in that, microorganisms or certain organisms are used as fertilizers instead of the chemical. Just like how biocontrol agents are there, same way, biofertilizers are also there.
Okay.
Now, biofertilizers, these are the organisms that enrich the nutrient quality of the soil.
Yes.
The main sources of biofertilizers are bacteria, fungi, and cyanobacteria, which is also known as blue-green algae.
Algae. Yes.
Now, you have studied about the nodules on the roots of legume plants formed by the symbiotic association of rhizobium.
Okay.
They do nitrogen fixation, right? So they make nitrogen available to the plant. Other
Yes.
bacteria can fix atmospheric nitrogen while free living in the soil. So
Okay.
azospirillum and azotobacter, they are free living and you can add them into the soil and they will produce nitrogen, thereby giving more nitrogen to the the plants.
Okay.
So if someone asks you which is the symbiotic nitrogen fixer, so you'll say rhizobia, which is
Okay.
the free living nitrogen fixer. So azospirillum, azotobacter.
Okay.
Now, there are certain fungi also, they are known to form symbiotic association with plants like mycorrhiza. This is the association, right? Now,
Yes.
many members of the genus Glomus, they form mycorrhiza.
Okay.
Here, the plant and the fungus, they are living together in an association. So we call it a symbiotic. Why? Because both of them are benefiting each other. So the
Okay.
fungal part of this, okay, they absorb phosphorus from the soil and give it to the plant. And the plant, they also, because of the fungus, they show resistance to root-borne pathogen, tolerance to salinity and drought, and because of which the plant growth increases. And the plant, in return, provides nutrition to the fungi.
Okay.
So basically, fungus brings sabzi from the market, plant makes the
Okay.
food and supplies it to the fungi.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the cyanobacteria, that is blue-green algae, they are autotrophic microbes widely distributed in aquatic and terrestrial environments. And
Okay.
they can also fix atmospheric nitrogen. Examples, Anabina, Nostoc, Oscillatoria, all of these are cyanobacteria that can do nitrogen fixation. So here, in the case, in the paddy fields, meaning in the rice fields, cyanobacteria, they
Okay.
are very important biofertilizer. They provide nutrition to the plant.
Okay.
Blue-green algae also add organic matter to the soil and increases its fertility. Currently, in our country, a number of biofertilizers are available commercially in the market, and farmers use these regularly in their fields to replenish soil nutrients and to reduce the dependence on chemical fertilizers. Clear?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
So this was a tiny chapter. I don't think you find it tough.
No, ma'am. I've done
Okay.
in pre-boards also.
You've done it also on your own. So
Yes.
now do one thing, go through the chapter from your book,
Okay.
okay, and see if there's anything that you still have a doubt or maybe you did not understand. Just tell me, okay?
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, one doubt.
Tell me.
Yes, the in this sludge and primary treatment and secondary treatment, what
Hmm.
happens to the flog, which is allowed to sediment?
That flock.
Yes. Is it
See.
that thing that digests like the other bacteria which digest these bacteria and fungi?
Hmm.
Okay.
Like the anaerobic digestion is done
Yes.
by them.
Okay.
They only reduce the BOD.
Okay. No doubts. Rest all is clear, ma'am.
Okay. So now tell me the chapters that we still have left.
Ecosystem and organism and population.
No. Ecosystem. Can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll do ecosystem.
Okay,
Okay.
ma'am.
Now both of these chapters, they're pain. They are major, basically EVS of
Yes.
ecosystem.
Uh,
So this is the functional unit of our nature. This is where the biotic agents interact with the abiotic agents. Biotic agents are the
okay.
living agents. Abiotic ones are the
Yes.
non-living ones. So they
Yes.
interact with each other and form relations and sort of, you can say, make the earth run the way it does. So
Okay.
when we talk about the ecosystem, so there are many on the earth, right? There are many different kinds of ecosystem, broadly divided into terrestrial and aquatic, depending upon the mode of life, whether it is on the land or whether it is in the water.
Okay.
Forest, grassland, and desert. These are the examples of terrestrial ecosystem, whereas
Yeah.
the pond, lake, wetland, river, oceans, estuary,
Yeah.
seas, all of these are the aquatic ecosystem.
Yeah.
Crop field and aquarium. These are man-made ecosystem because these are the ones that we have made on our own, right? You
Yeah.
take a glass tank, add
Yes.
water into it, add pebbles, add trees, you make a aquarium, then add fishes. So that is how
Yes.
you are creating it. But you can't create mountains and forest because
Yeah.
that is how it has been blessed. Like we
Yeah.
have been blessed.
Yes.
Okay. So when we talk about the ecosystem, so there are certain, you can say, components of the ecosystem that are there. Okay.
Oh.
Ecosystem, it has a variety of structures and functions that it performs. So we are going to see each one of it one by one. So when we talk about the structure and function of the ecosystem, so interaction of biotic and abiotic components, they result in a physical structure that is characteristic for each type of ecosystem. Identification and enumeration, meaning counting, of plant and animal species of an ecosystem give its species composition. Like, for example, if you think about the polar ice caps, they would have
Yes.
less species composition. The equatorial region, it will have more, right?
Yes.
So depending upon how the organism is interacting with the abiotic component, the species composition change. Clear?
Oh. Yes, ma'am.
Now, the vertical distribution of species occupying different levels is called as stratification.
Okay.
Meaning, if you talk about the this thing, the what do you call it? The forest ecosystem,
Oh.
right? So if this is the forest, so here you will have smaller bushes also. You will
Yes.
have small trees also, and then
Yes.
you'll have bigger trees, right? So many bigger trees. So now here, the organisms, they are present at every level. So that
Yes.
is what we call as stratification. It's the vertical distribution, meaning there are some insects that are like birds and insects that are big and they live only in the branches of the bigger trees. There are some insects or birds or anything that need less light. So they will be present at the lower side because the light will be sort of blocked by these bigger trees. So this
Yes.
vertical distribution is called as the stratification. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let me see. I had ecosystem notes also.
Yeah.
Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm. Yeah, so we were talking about. Also, one more thing, if you compare the natural ecosystem and the man-made ecosystem, the man-made ecosystem can also be called as anthropogenic ecosystem. Anthropogenic means the action of the man. Clear?
Okay. Okay.
So the crop field, the garden, the aquarium, all of these are the man-made ecosystems. Now, when we talk about the
Okay.
characteristics of the man-made ecosystem, yes? Are you saying
No,
something?
no, no, ma'am.
Okay. So when we talk about the characteristics of man-made ecosystem, so they do not have a self-regulatory mechanism. If you think about forest, we don't have to regulate forest, right?
Yes.
It regulates on its own.
Yes.
But if you think about the aquarium, if you don't clean the water every week, the
Ye-
fishes will start to die.
Yes.
That is, they can't regulate themselves. You have to clean it, you have to do it. Also, they have little diversity. They don't have a lot of, you can say, if the number of fishes that you put, they'll only be there. There will be no other organisms. The food chain will be very simple of the man-made ecosystem. They will have high productivity because they are very concentrated and they'll have very little cycling of the nutrients. So these
Ye-
are certain characteristics that the man-made ecosystem has. Now
Okay.
talking about the abiotic components. So the climatic components, it includes the water, the light, temperature, wind, all of this would come in the climatic part.
Okay.
Then the soil part, like anything that is related to the soil is called as edaphic. So physical composition of the soil, chemical composition, like whether it is sandy soil, loamy soil, clay soil, whether it has a lot of iron, whether it has a lot of sulfur. Depending upon that, there are so many different kinds of soil. And
Okay.
depending upon the geography of Earth, right? So valleys, mountains, plains, slopes, all of these are also the abiotic components of our ecosystem.
Okay.
Now, when we talk about the biotic components of our ecosystem, so we have producers, consumers, and decomposers. So under
Okay.
the producers, these are the autotrophic organisms, meaning the plants. They make food for the whole entire earth and also they make the oxygen.
Yes.
That's why we call them as the producers. Then when we talk about consumers, so these are heterotrophic organisms. Okay. So they
Okay.
cannot make their own food, rather they they depend on the plants directly or
Yeah.
indirectly. Now, can you tell me how do they depend directly or indirectly?
What plants?
Like the consumers, how do they depend on the plants directly or indirectly?
Indirectly by like oxygen, or
Okay.
like the consumer. There are two types of consumer, right? The secondary consumer and primary consumer. So the primary consumer has the plants. Yeah.
So the primary consumer, like the herbivores, they'll be directly eating the plant, right?
Yes.
So they are
Yes.
directly dependent on them. But
Yes.
when we talk about the carnivores, they don't eat the
Yes.
plants, but they eat the herbivores that eat the plant.
Yes. So there. not
So they
directly
are indirectly dependent.
yes.
And then we have the tertiary consumers and then the top carnivores. Like, see, the primary consumers, these are the herbivores.
Okay.
The secondary consumers, these are the primary carnivores that will be directly eating the herbivores.
Yes.
Then tertiary consumers, they will be the secondary carnivore which will be eating the primary carnivore.
Yes.
And then the top carnivores will be those organisms that are not eaten by any other organism. They may hunt, but no one hunts them. Like
Yes.
lion, no one hunts lion. Then comes the decomposers. Fungi, bacteria, all of those that decompose the organic matter into inorganic substances. These are the decomposers.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
For example, the plant here, they are the producers. Here, grasshopper eats the plant, so the grasshopper becomes the primary consumer. Insectivorous birds, these become the secondary consumer because they are going to eat the grasshopper. And then the snakes, they become the tertiary consumers because they are
Yes.
going to eat the insectivorous birds. And lastly, the vultures which eat the snakes, they are the top carnivores in this case.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the structure of the ecosystem, talking about the species composition. So we saw that the number of plant and animal species in the ecosystem is what is meant by species composition. We
Okay.
know that the species in the tropical rainforest will be more than the species in the desert ecosystem.
Yes.
And stratification, we saw the vertical distribution of different species. So the bottom layer, we have the grass and the herbs. The
Yes.
second layer, we have the shrubs, and the top layer are the trees. So
Yes.
all the organisms, they will be present like that. Like, for example, there are giraffe. Giraffe will be eating from the tall trees. They'll not go for the herbs or the grasses.
Yes.
And the goats, they go for the herbs and the grasses. So that
Yes.
is why this is called as stratification.
Okay.
Different species occupying different levels.
Yes.
Then we have the functions of the ecosystem. So the ecosystem has these four major functions: productivity, decomposition, energy flow, nutrient cycling. Now the productivity, this means how much organic matter is produced by the plants. That is called as productivity. Okay.
Okay.
So when we talk about productivity, it can be primary productivity and secondary productivity.
Okay.
Further, let's just see what primary and secondary productivity is.
Okay.
So primary production, it is defined as the amount of the organic matter produced per unit area over a time period by plants during photosynthesis.
Okay.
It is expressed in terms of weight or energy like kilocal meter square, gram meter square inverse. The rate of biomass production is called as productivity.
Okay.
Now this productivity, it can be gross primary productivity or net primary productivity. Now let
Okay.
us see that. Now when we talk about the gross primary productivity, so it is the rate of production or synthesis of organic matter by producers during photosynthesis per unit time and area.
Okay.
A considerable amount of gross primary productivity is consumed in respiration by the plants. But when we talk about the net primary productivity, this is when the rate of organic matter buildup or stored by the producers in excess of respiration. So if you remove the respiratory loss from the gross primary productivity, you will have the net primary productivity.
Okay.
Now, the net primary productivity, it is available biomass for consumption to the heterotrophs. Now, this is what the heterotrophic organisms consume.
Okay.
Now, the factors that affect the primary productivity. Now, there are many factors such as the biotic and the abiotic factors that can affect the primary productivity, like photosynthetic capacity. If there is more photosynthesis that is being done, then more productivity will be there, right?
Okay. Yes.
Solar radiation, like if more sun is there, more photosynthesis and more productivity.
Okay.
Temperature. Optimum temperature means high productivity. Low or very high temperature means low productivity.
Okay.
Moisture should also be there and availability of all the nutrients. So if the plants will stay healthy, then only the productivity will be done properly. Clear?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Now, they say that the productivity of which ecosystem will be higher? Tell me, land ecosystem or ocean ecosystem?
Land ecosystem,
Why?
because there are more living organisms on land.
Okay, and
And there is photosynthesis, there is no. Yeah, there is more availability of nutrients and
see, the main reason your answer is correct.
okay.
The main reason the land ecosystem will have much more productivity is because the land ecosystem receives more sunlight than
Okay.
ocean ecosystem.
Yes.
Okay. Also, because deeper you go into the ocean, the less light is there.
Yes.
So light decreases in depth and nutrient availability also decreases. That is why land ecosystem will be more productive.
Okay.
Now talking about the productivity of the biosphere. So annual net primary productivity of whole biosphere is approximately 170 billion tons. It
Okay.
occupies 70% of the surface.
Okay.
Amongst that, the productivity in the ocean is 55 billion tons and on the land it is 115 billion tons.
Okay.
So this was about primary productivity. Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Now talking about the secondary productivity. So it is the rate of formation of new organic matter by consumers. So here the consumers are involved and not the producers.
Okay.
So the first function of the ecosystem was productivity. Then comes
Yes.
decomposition. Now, decomposition, this is basically when the organic matter is broken down into simpler version inorganic matter like CO2, H2O, and variety of nutrients. This is called as
Okay.
decomposition. And it is done
Okay.
by the decomposers. Now, the raw
Yeah.
material for decomposition is called as the detritus. So the
Okay.
dead remains of the leaves, like the dead remains of animals, fecal matter, everything that becomes the raw material for like on which the decomposition process will take place. And that is what we call as a detritus. So this detritus,
Okay.
it is the raw material for decomposition. And we know that the
Yes.
organisms that will do decomposition, they will be called as decomposers, or you can say detrivores.
Okay.
Among such detrivores, earthworm is very common and it is very commonly known as a farmer's friend. Why? Because it does the process of decomposition in the soil, as a result of which they lose the soil and make air available to the soil. So the
Okay.
plants, they'll have oxygen supply also.
Okay.
Talking about the steps of decomposition, so there's fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humification, and mineralization. These are the steps of decomposition.
Okay.
So the first step is fragmentation of detritus. So in this case, the detrivores would feed on the detritus, and
Okay.
during this process, the detritus gets broken down into smaller particles so that later on when the enzymes act on it, it will be easier for the enzymes to digest.
Okay.
Then there is leaching, which is the second process. Here, all the soluble substances, like the water soluble substances that are there in the like the detritus that has undergone fragmentation. So those soluble substances, it will go into the soil and then it will become unavailable salt. So it's like it is seeping into the soil.
Okay.
Okay, after that, there is catabolism. So this is done by the bacteria and fungi that are saprotrophic in nature. So they secrete digestive enzymes on the detritus that has been fragmented, and then they, with the help of those digestive enzymes, the complex organic matter gets changed into simple inorganic matter.
Okay.
Then there's humification. Humification is the process in which the humus is formed. This humus is a dark-colored, amorphous, decomposed organic matter that is very rich in cellulose, lignin, tannin resins, and it is highly resistant to microbial action. So means no microbe can actually degrade it.
Okay.
Decomposes at a very slow rate. So humus, it is slightly acidic, colloidal, and it functions like a reservoir of nutrients. So it's very good for the soil as it increases the availability of the nutrients for the plants.
Okay.
The last step of the formation is called as mineralization. So the release of all the minerals that have been like made as a result of decomposition into the soil, that is called as mineralization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Now let us see the factors that affect the decomposition. The first is the chemical nature of the detritus. If the detritus has more hard substances, they will degrade slow.
Okay.
So the detritus should be soluble. It'll be slow if it has a lot of lignin and chitin, because these are very hard substances. So
Okay.
if these will be absent, then the detritus will have, you can say, much greater rate of decomposition.
Okay.
Temperature. Now, high temperature means more decomposition. Low temperature means less decomposition.
Yeah.
Moisture. Now, high moisture means less decomposition.
Okay.
So, like not a lot of moisture should be there. And
Okay.
proper aeration must be required.
Okay.
Temperature and soil moisture, they are the most important climatic factors that regulate the process of decomposition. These are the most effective ones. Clear?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Now, the next ecosystem function is the energy flow. Energy flow, like from one level to another level, like for example, we say that the flow of energy from the producers to the consumers is called as energy flow. Clear?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Now see, we know that the ultimate or the celestial source of energy on Earth is the sun. Right.
Yes.
So when like 100% of the solar energy is sent to the Earth, so
Okay.
out of that, less than 15% of it is the photosynthetically active radiation.
Okay.
And from 50%, only 1 to 5% is used for photosynthesis.
Okay.
And the rest of it absorbed by the gases, water vapor, and reflected by the clouds. So only 50% of the total available sunlight, and out of that, only 1% is used for this thing, photosynthesis. Clear?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So the solar radiation, it is taken by the producers to make the food. Now the producers are eaten by the herbivores. So this energy gets transferred to the herbivore. From the herbivore, it gets transferred to the carnivore and then to the top carnivore. So this is like the energy flow. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, related to this comes the food chain. Now, there are different kinds of food chains that are available. Grazing food chain, detritus food chain, and parasitic food chain. So different types of food chains are available in our environment. So when we talk about the grazing food chain, so here what happens is that this thing, the producer, consumer, and decomposers are involved in this. Now
Okay.
the producers, like the grasses, the trees, they make the food. Food is consumed by the primary consumer, like the grasshopper, cows, zooplanktons. Then the secondary consumer, which is birds, fishes, or wolf. And ultimately the top consumer or the tertiary consumer, man and lion. So here you can see, I've written T1, T2, T3. So each level of the food chain is called as a trophic level. So energy
Okay.
gets transferred at every trophic level.
Okay.
So this grazing food chain, it is the major conduit of energy flow in an aquatic ecosystem also. So
Okay.
phytoplankton, zooplankton, they are found in the aquatic ecosystem.
Okay.
When we talk about the detritus food chain, so here detritus is the starting material. So detritus is consumed by the earthworm. The earthworms, they are eaten by the sparrow, and the sparrow gets eaten by the even bigger birds, falcon.
Okay.
So this is like the food chain of detritus.
Okay.
Then there is parasitic food chain. So parasitic food chain is when the tree is there, tree have herbivorous birds. So herbivores, like these birds, they are eating the fruits and the things. And then the birds have bugs and lices on them, which
Okay.
are parasites. So this is a parasitic food chain.
Okay.
Then comes food web. So the collective, you can say, combination of all the food chains or the interconnected form of all the food chains is called as the food web. And if anyone asks you which one is more practical, food chain or food web, so always say food web is more practical.
Yeah.
Any doubts up until now?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Then comes the 10% law of energy transfer. Now, this law, it was given by Lindman in the year 1942. And according to him, he said that at every trophic level, 10% of the total available energy gets transferred. For
Okay.
example, if the producers, they are making 1000 kilocalories of energy. So the herbivores that eat the producers, they're going to get 10% of this 1000 kilocalories. That is
Okay.
100 kilocalories. Now the carnivores that are eating the herbivores, now they are going to get 10% of this 100 kilocalorie and not 1000. So
Okay.
10% of the total available energy. Clear? 10% of total available energy will be sent at every trophic level. So now the carnivores that eat the herbivores, they'll be getting 10% of 100 kilocalories. Now the top carnivores that eat these carnivores, they'll be getting 10% of 10 kilocalories. So they'll get
Okay.
1 kilocalorie. So this is what is meant by the 10% law. This
Okay.
can be given in the question, like how much energy will be there at this level. So you can't do 10% directly of this. You have to do sequentially.
Okay.
Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now you can note down till here. Then I'll
Okay.
move forward.
Done, ma'am.